We here live at Billy V's Palace in Paradise Valley, Arizona. I'm here with Jevin Hodge, a good friend of mine. This is Jesse Ray with the Growth House Podcast. My man, you're kind of far away. I'm not going to dap you up, but bro, I appreciate you being
Let's
here.
do this, man.
I'm excited.
Really excited for this conversation here that we're going to have here today, and let's get rolling, man.
Let's do it. All right, so you've done a lot, man, and I just kind of want to give a quick background, a little intro into Jevin. Oldest son of a single mom, grew up in public housing here in Tempe, Arizona. You're an Arizona native.
Born and raised.
Love it. Graduate of George Washington University in D.C. There's kind of three main things I've kind of seen. You kind of told me about your life: community aspect, business, and political.
Right.
I want you kind of to tell the audience in each of those categories, where are you at right now in your life?
Yeah, definitely, and I appreciate that. And I'm actually in a very retrospective inflection point right now. I'm celebrating my 30th birthday next month.
Hey, happy
so,
birthday.
About to enter that 30 club and,
Yep.
figuring out, where do I want to go from here? What do I want to do? My last decade has just been insane, right? I feel incredibly blessed to have the opportunities that I've had. So like you said, I'm Jevin Hodge. I'm the son of a single parent. My mother raised my brother and me by herself and taught us everything that we needed to know to be successful. And this is the most important thing that I think I'm going to say today. Hard work, perseverance, grit, determination, and how to get the job done, right? And growing up for us, times weren't always easy. Didn't have a car until I was a sophomore in high school. Lived in affordable housing, and I watched my mother every single day bust her tail to provide a better life for herself and for her kids. And the reason why I highlight her so much, first black woman elected in the city of Tempe, first black woman on the Tempe City Council, right? Only black woman duly elected to 2 offices right now in the state.
Come on now, shout out Ms. Hodge.
Right, she's an icon,
Yeah.
right? And because of her leadership, right, and just those everyday life lessons, my brother and I are who we are today, right? And so, like you said, I would say I navigate 3 different tracks in life. One is like a business focused entrepreneur track, I would say. The second one is a community, deeply involved social impact track, and then politics. I don't hide it. I'm deeply involved and deeply engaged in politics, and I believe that every person should be. So on the business front, I'm a social impact consultant by day, entrepreneur by night. I have been with my firm, Link Strategic Partners. I was employee number 7, right? And now we're at 60 plus employees with offices around the country and around the world, in Paris and United Kingdom. And we do social impact consulting. We help our clients solve problems, primarily through the lens of communication. So we could talk all about that. In the community track, I serve on a number of boards and nonprofits around town. Jewish Family and Child Services, one of the largest healthcare providers, 5 facilities in Maricopa County. And what I would say I'm most proud of my community service is the Booker T. Washington Child Development Center. I have the honor. You've been there. You've seen it.
It's amazing.
I serve as the president of the longest running Head Start in the state of Arizona. I'm a Head Start kid myself. And we get to provide services for nearly 1,000 families in South Phoenix. And when you think about, when you think about what that means, right? 3 to 5-year-olds and workforce development for the families, that is eradicating poverty. We want to make sure that they're getting the education services that they need, the food that they need, the parents are getting the job training that they need, the homes are getting the health care support that they need. That is how we help families. And then politically, I have been an elected leader of a major party. I was the youngest statewide black official in the country when I was elected at 21, representing 4.5 million folks here in the state. I have run for office twice in 2 of the closest races in Arizona history for the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, most important and impactful office you've never heard of, for the United States Congress in this last in this district right here where we're at Billy V Palace. It was the 6th closest seat in the country, and I was an underdog. And so, we can talk about this, and being politically involved and civically engaged is so vitally important. But I'm gonna shut up because I can keep going. But
Okay, hold on.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it.
Jevin, how old are you again?
Man, I turned 30 in 16 days.
Gosh, he's younger than me.
In 16 days, yeah.
Nah, you're amazing, man, and I want to take it back, and I think I've heard you on a couple other podcasts. I did a little bit of research. Head Start has seemed to have a huge impact on your life,
Absolutely.
and that's probably why you're now giving back and being a part of it
Absolutely.
still. So let's take it back to Head Start days. How old were you? How'd you get involved, and what kind of impact did that have on your life?
So I'm one of the rare ones, right? I was a student of Head Start. So let me provide a little bit of an understanding, right? most people know the term preschool, right? It's what you go to before you go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
If you pay for that service, it's generally called preschool or daycare, right? When you're 3 to 5 years old. Head Start is the government provided alternative. And so early childhood education, right? You're going to school every single day. But the difference is that from a government standpoint, it's not an education program. It's actually in the Department of Health and Human Services as an anti-poverty program. And so the only way that you can become a student of Head Start is that your family has to be below the poverty belt. And so the purpose of it is to get you the educational resources that you need, get you fed throughout the day, and then provide support services for the family, right? So workforce development for the parents. Let's say there's a healthcare need. Our counselors, our caseworkers step in to provide that, right? And so I was a student at Head Start and very proud of it. Head Start is what I would argue one of our most successful government programs that we have here in this country. And we can take a deeper dive into that. But I became the president of the Booker T. Washington Child Development Center in 2014, man. I was like 20 years old.
I was going to say you must have been like 14 years old.
Literally, man, literally. So I was still in college, and it was founded by Mr. Good. Mr. Good is the first black person elected to elected office in the state of Arizona. The Phoenix Municipal Building, right? City Hall is named after Calvin Good. He founded this institution. He was like an adopted grandfather to me, and he passed it on to me. And he said he would always ask me, what more could we be doing for our families? What more could we be doing? How much more can we serve? And you've been to the institution, man. We own a city block, right?
Yep.
Just east of downtown. It's like our little Wakanda. People don't even know that we exist. And then we operate in the Roosevelt School District, the Phoenix Elementary School District, Cartwright School District, Wilson, right? And we're there just operating behind the scenes. Don't want recognition, don't need recognition. Our recognition is the fact that, years have gone by and there are valedictorians that are graduating from high school and starting their own businesses. Our validation is the fact that we've had generations of people who have gone through Booker T. Washington. They're so proud of the work, right, and support that they've received. Our validation is when we track our test scores and we see that our kids from Booker T, by the time they get to third grade, and here's a little point for you that are viewing. Third grade is that inflection point where they decide, are we going to build more prison beds or not, based off of your third grade test scores here in the state. We can dive into that a little bit later.
Wow.
But when our kids, when they get to third grade, that they're far exceeding their peers, right? Like that, there's no more impactful work I think I can be doing right now than supporting the next generation of leaders.
That's amazing. I want to talk about destiny real quick. It almost seemed like you were destined to be where you're at today. Do you feel a pressure, and when did that start when you knew, like, all right, my life is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to be, one of the biggest leaders in Arizona?
Man, it's crazy to think about that because I hear that often. I don't see that, man. I'm like genuine. I'm just the same OG, right? Yeah. Like I'm just Jevin. I'm just doing what I'm doing. But like as I talk to my friends from high school, and they're like, we expected you to be doing this, and I'm like, doing what, right? Like I'm just doing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so my mother always, from a young boy, right, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, will always remind us of the weight that we carry on our shoulders, right? And so because of that constant reminder, I almost just forgot about it, man. I forget about it sometimes. And sometimes it's aching and I feel it. But most of the time I forget about it because I put my head down. It's all about putting my head down and doing the work and making sure that, right, like we're supporting people and doing it the best that we can. I'll tell you a little story, though. I want to say probably when I was in 2004, tsunami hit Southeast Asia. I led the largest fundraiser in the state that was student-based. I was in 4th grade. CNN came in and ran a special on it. We raised a bunch of money. It was the coolest thing. And so it was like kind of at that moment when I realized I started to learn my abilities, right, like the superpowers. And over time, I have grown into my superpowers, right? And my superpower, and I don't hide it, is connecting with people. I feel that if I'm talking to you, you are the single most important person in the world. I want to learn your story. I want to learn about your family. I want to learn the foods that you eat. I want to learn how I can help you. And like that right there, for me, is how we take this to the next level. You often feel that your leaders don't care about you. I care deeply. I probably care too much, right? Some people have told me. But I would say that when I started to understand the power, it started probably about 5th, 6th grade. My mom would ask me a question. Are you going to build orphanages or are you going to build bridges? I would always say, Mom, I'm going to build bridges. those people need to get to work. We got to keep the economy moving. You know, I'm one of those kids. I'm studying. I'm watching CNN and stuff. We got to keep the economy moving, Mom. We got to make sure people stay at work. And she'll say, you're going to learn one day that's the wrong answer. And I would always argue with her. Debate. 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, student body president, doing stuff in the government. Boom, 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 boom. I'm the first student in Arizona state history to author legislation, passed unanimously at the legislature, and then vetoed by the governor. Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I've had these crazy experiences. I was a senior in high school. I had an injury on the football field. I was an athlete, you know, ran track, played football, basketball. I had an injury on the football field, and I had to have emergency surgery, a procedure, but still classified as surgery. My mom was in between jobs. So anybody who's viewing right now knows when you're in between jobs, what happens? Your health care lapse, unless you get COBRA, right? And then you don't have health care. So we didn't have health care at the time. And there was a doctor at Banner Desert, Dr. Randy Omar. I'll never forget this man. I want to go back and find him. And he said, I'm going to figure out how you get this procedure. And so if they took me to the OR, it would have been an astronomical amount of money. They put me in the back room. They put all these bands on me. The nurses didn't even come offer us a blanket because that would have been a charge. And so Dr. Omar, after his shift ended at 7 a.m., he said, we're going to figure this out. So he stayed with us, figured out a solution. I had that procedure I needed to have in the back room of a cold ER room, right, at Banner Desert, and he was there. And I remember waking up, my mom was crying, and he's holding my hand. And he said, we figured it out. We got it taken care of. We will figure out everything together. I remember at that moment, I'm a senior in high school, man. I'm 17 years old. I look at my mom, and I go, I will forever build the orphanage. Because if the people who are driving to work need the bridge, they can always find another route. But those kids that are in need us to step in. And I was, at that moment, right, I was rocked to my core because I had never experienced nothing like that. Yeah, I grew up poor. Yeah, we didn't have much. But, like, we had basic needs, insurance, all those other things. I realized something, and it just changed my perspective on how I view life. And, like, that's, like, one of those moments where I understood the power of the work that I was doing because I experienced it firsthand.
Man, that's beautiful. I feel like so many people have those stories that then, you know, make them realize, oh, this is my purpose, this is my passion.
Absolutely.
What, in regards to that story, what changed for you then with the orphanages? Did you then get into politics? Like, what happened after that?
I was already doing it, right? And so at that point in time, like, I was the chair of the Governor's Youth Commission. I'm traveling around the state. I mean, like, I was already doing various different things. But what it did for me is that it didn't change my course. It didn't change my path. What it did is it changed my purpose and it changed my drive, right? It changed why I was doing it and what was propelling me to do it and to move forward, right? I mean, because you're 17, 16 years old, it's cool being on TV, right? Yeah. Like, it's cool when people know your name, when you're in the grocery store and people have seen you on the front page of the newspaper. Like, that's cool, right? And, like, you really don't understand it, right? But at that point in time, it like, from that experience moving forward, right, I realized that the value wasn't in the vanity things, right? The value is in the things that people never will hear about. The value is in the things that will impact people's lives for generations, not just for, you know, a few minutes. And it helped me to understand. And from like, literally, it's crazy. It was like, that was when the light switch went on, and it was almost like I was handed a chisel and I was handed a pick, right, and a hammer. And I had to start hammering away at this new iceberg, right, to figure out what I needed to uncover in that pathway. I mean, it was just like I literally, like the fork in the road, and like I took the right pill, right? You know what I mean? I took the right turn opposed to going the wrong direction. And it was just one of those things, man, where like, it didn't happen overnight, but like, even right now, I often reflect on those moments. When I was running for Congress, often reflect on those moments and really learning about how do you create a solution that works for everybody? You know, and we could probably talk about the political stuff later, but specifically in the political stuff, right? Like, when you're an elected leader, you're not an ambassador for the 50% plus one that elects you. You're an elected leader for 100% of the population, regardless if somebody agrees with you or not. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, everybody's opinion matters, regardless if I agree with it or not. How do I find a solution? How do I communicate? How do I make sure that this individual knows that I'm valuing their opinion, even if it's 100% atomically opposed to what I think, right? And, like, that's what those situations help me to understand, right? It's like, I'm not always right. I'm not. right? But I need to understand that everyone's perspective matters, and we got to do whatever we can for our most vulnerable populations, or else, because if we're not supporting and fighting for our most vulnerable populations, I can tell you, no one is.
No one will.
Yeah.
So walk me down. You took that fork in the road. You went right. 21 years old was when you got elected. What does it look like since 21 to now,
man.
almost 30 years old?
Oh, man. So I spent my entire 20s basically campaigning, essentially campaigning.
Campaigning for what? What does that look like?
So when I was elected, and full disclaimer here, this is not a promotional ad for any political party. I'm very clear about that. I am, here just providing the story for contextual evidence. I was elected to lead the Democratic Party, and at that time was when we started to see.
At 21 years old.
21 years old. Yes.
What
sir.
does that mean? Lead the Democratic Party.
So basically, the way it works in the party structure is that you have your local organizations that support your local offices, city council, state legislature, and then you have your county organizations that support your county offices, right? Sheriff, county board of supervisors, and you have your statewide organization that sets the strategy for your party for the state to elect statewide officials in every elected office underneath it. You often hear terms, what people most readily identify with is like the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, or the RNC, the Republican National Committee. Just think about that structure at the local level.
Got it. Okay.
You get what I'm saying? So I'm elected to lead the Arizona Democratic Party. At the time, 3.5 million Democrats. My job was to make sure we set the strategy and we get Democrats elected up and down.
So you get 21 years old. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like,
man. Yeah, it was an
like
intense campaign.
What's the second youngest person?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I got beat a few years later. I think somebody that was like 19 or 20 got elected after I stepped down.
Yeah.
But here's what it was, right? So my thing was, I have never been somebody who puts party first. It has always been someone who puts people first. People first, right? Like, yeah, I'm a proud, registered, party member. I vote. I don't vote party lines, but I vote, my values. And a lot of the times my values aligns with my party, right? I don't vote party lines, and I just want to make that one very clear. But I will say, though, when I got elected, I brought an engagement-based approach. I brought a human values-based approach. And so I'm hosting roundtables with Republicans. I'm walking into Republican leadership offices and developing these relationships. And these relationships I still have to this day, right? Like friends of mine, right? And like we disagree wholeheartedly. I'm traveling around the state. When I was elected as in this position, I made like 500 stops. Wow. All 15 counties. I mean, I'm talking about Ajo on up to Page, Havasu on over to Globe. I'm in the White Mountains, right? You know what I mean? I'm doing events in the mountains over in northwestern Arizona, right? Like not even in a city, right? Like we in the mountains because they wanted to have an event like almost on Hoover Dam, right? Like I'm everywhere, right? Maricopa County, right? Pima County, Pinal County, right? We're all over the place. And the one thing that I learned is that like our issues aren't very different. We put our pants on the same exact way, regardless if you're Republican or Democrat. People who are most vulnerable just want support. And I'm meeting with these elected leaders, and I remember one time I'm going to leave the elected leader out, and I'm going to leave the city out. I make it to this city, and I specifically asked the people that are organizing the event that I'm at, and it was generally like, a community meeting or stuff like that, right? I'm asking the folks, can I meet with the sheriff? I want to meet with the sheriff. I want to meet with the sheriff. And like, this is a sheriff of a county, and someone I did not agree with on anything. And so I get a meeting with the sheriff, and he goes, basically asked me like, why are we meeting? Yeah. Like, why? Like, you don't agree with me. I don't agree with you. I don't like you. You don't like me, basically type of thing. And I said, I want to learn, man. Like, what drives you? What helps you tick? Like, that's it. Like, I'm not trying to get out of this meeting to get your support. I don't want your support. Right? Like, I find new support. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I want to learn, like, what makes you you, right? Like, why do you think the way that you do? And for me, at that point in time, it was legitimately just an educational journey. Lo and behold, I did not realize that I was going to be able to apply those instances in my later life. And so I'm traveling around the state. We get a bunch of people elected. The Secretary of State elected. At that point in time, we got Kirsten Sinema elected. We're winning races. We're the closest we've ever been in the legislature. The second election comes around. So I got elected in 2017. Trump was elected in November, took office in January. We both took office the same month. Trump took office on January 20th, and I took office on January 17th. And literally, that was basically what I was campaigning against, right? It was like learning about people, channeling that energy that we saw, boom, 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 boom. No need to go into details around that. I stepped down in December of 2019 to run for a local office. I ran for the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors, which is the governing body for Maricopa County, America's 5th largest county.
Yeah, huge.
5 million people, 4.5 million people live in this county. Governed by 5 people make the decisions for the entire county. Each district has nearly 1 million people in the district, okay? And so I'm running for this office, and I'm running a great race against an individual who's now one of my really close friends, Jack Sellers. He beat me. But I stepped down, and let me tell you, this district is massive. Tempe, Ahwatukee, Chandler, Gilbert, Queen Creek, West Mesa, nearly 1 million people. But this district was a district that was not in favor for my party. Trump won this district by 8 points. 8 points. Like in political world, like anything more than like 2 or 3 points is like not even worth even looking at, right? Yeah. But I get in this race, and what do? I start talking to folks. I start communicating with folks. I start asking folks those questions. I take with those lessons I learned from that sheriff, and I was talking to people that didn't agree with me, right? And I was trying to figure out, like, where do we find common ground? Like, you care about criminal justice reform? Actually, so do I. And let me tell you about how the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors impacts the courts and the sheriff's department, right? And like it was taking a very surgical approach. And then COVID hit. Right? And then I had to move campaigning online. And so now I'm on the phones all day. I'm doing Zooms all day. And election day comes around. And guess what? On election day, I'm winning by 15 points.
Wow.
15 points. And Arizona has a law that every election has to be counted 15 days after the election. So for 15 days straight, I'm winning. We get to the 15th day, and the votes change. And I end up losing by 403 votes out of hundreds of thousands of ballots cast, 0.03%. And the reason why I lost that race, right, and I still don't know, but probably because the guy, it was a split district. But in that race, we were able to talk to folks. The percentage of folks that didn't align with my party that voted for me was astronomical, right? The numbers weren't there. And so I was hurt, I was sad, I was broken, but I was proud. I was so proud to be able to move the needle the way that we did. So I take some time off, right? And
how do you deal with that process? Because everyone's probably looking at you like, Jevin, you did it. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you don't win. Well, how'd you internally deal with that?
It took me a long time, right, to accept the fact that I did it, right? Because for me, it was a failure, right? And the one thing that I've accepted, and I know for a fact, right, you don't fail, you learn. You learn.
Absolutely.
And so it was a very humbling experience. I was hurt. I was broken, shook to my core. And then the thing is that like in elections are generally determined on the night of the election or the night after. So the fact that this went for 2 weeks, right, it was agonizing. It was like having your fingernails peeled off, right? Like it was painful just watching the lead dwindle away and then you lose it, right? Literally the grasp of it. But then, it's like, as crazy as it sounds, like you hear those cliches and it actually makes sense. Like it's not rejection, it's redirection, right? Like God has a bigger plan for you, right?
Amen.
Like you realize that it's always darkest before dawn. Like those cliches that you hear, like it actually started to apply. And let me tell you how it actually started to apply, right? So I take some time off. I don't miss a beat. I get right back at it. I'm engaging, I'm running, I'm moving, I'm doing my thing. I'm back on the political engagement thing. And then March, April rolls around, and we don't have somebody that's going to run for Congress in Arizona's 1st district. At the time, it was Arizona's 6th district before the lines were redrawn, but Arizona's 1st district. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. Yeah. My mom talked me into it, right? And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I jump in this race. I am an underdog. I'm running against a 12-year incumbent who's been in the office for 12 years. 12 years and won this district by 5 points before, right? Like this is not like it's a competitive seat, but it's not like you're going to have a chance. When I tell you, and so when you run for high office, you start off and you raise your money from your friends and your families. First few $100,000 raised by your friends and families. I raised $10,000 from my friends and families. You know what I did from there? I made, over the course of the campaign, 52,000 phone calls asking people for support.
Wow.
Most of them in Arizona. All day. That's all I did. Asking people for support. Calling folks. Some of the folks viewing today probably got a phone call from me.
Probably got hit up by Jevin.
Right. And then I was there in the community. I learned what I learned from when I was leading the party. I learned what I learned from when I ran in my last race. that everyone's opinion mattered. I was going everywhere, man. I'm in the senior center. I'm at the gun show party. You know what I mean? I'm everywhere. And like what I was just doing was taking that pick and that hammer, and I was just chiseling away, chiseling away. I went from being a nobody that nobody thought had a chance to being one of the most highest profiled races in the country. And I just climbed up the ladder. I told people, I was like, my polling's accurate. Watch me. I was like, look, I'm going to bet on me. I don't need you to, right? Like, I just climbing up the ladder. And then people started to catch on. And I started getting endorsements here. And I started getting endorsements there. And I started getting other big names. And I started getting other big names. And next thing you know, Barack Obama's in Arizona. Next thing you know, like, started getting these big names. And it's coming out. Hillary Clinton's writing me letters, right? Like, started getting these, big names. And then we get close to the election. And the craziest part was seeing my name on TV. I'm in the gym working out, and I see 2 ads that are talking about how I'm a horrible person, and then 2 ads coming on like, Jevin's that guy, right? And people looking at me. I'm working out. People like,
is this you?
Yeah. And so we end this election. I'm winning. I'm up by 17 points now on election day. And then another week and a half goes by. And it's just chiseling away. And I ended up losing by about a half of a percentage point, making it one of Arizona's most close congressional seats and the 6th closest congressional seat in the country. And a lot of people ask me, like, how are you? You're the only person in Arizona history to do this, to come this close in these elections. And quite honestly, like, my purpose was to lay the foundation for something bigger. I don't know what that something bigger is politically, right? But I'm not going to run away from it. I'm not, and so I'm walking into my 30th birthday and realizing right after my 21st birthday, literally a month after my 21st birthday, I started that journey. And now heading into my 30th birthday, I'm reflecting back, looking at the work that we've done, the amount of people that I have helped get elected, raise money for, become friends with. I can pick up the phone and personally call. Like, the amount of change that we've seen in our communities, the amount of investment that we've been able to make, I'm so incredibly proud of it. I'm not going to let my foot off the pedal, but I'm going to keep running with it.
Man, a couple things I want to touch on there. One, because we're just talking about it. You mentioned you had ads saying, like, how much of a terrible person you are, and then other people endorsing you because you're the greatest person in the world. This is why you should get elected. How do you deal with that? And are you fully, like, accepting and you want to go even further? I don't know if you want to be a president one day, but, like, they really try to expose everything. Like, they try to go in your skeletons in the closet.
Everything.
They even might attack your family. Like, it's ruthless.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did.
And you're just 100% okay with that. You're like, bring it on, because I got a bigger purpose.
It's a part of the process.
Walk me through that. I don't think I could do that right now.
So you want to? Let me tell you a number. This race probably cost somewhere about $17 to $20 million.
Wow.
On both sides, right? And I had about $12 to $15 million spent either in support of my opponent or against me directly. And you name it, they said it. They even made flyers that they sent to everybody's mailbox that made my ears and my nose bigger, right? Like everything from like racial undertones to calling out my family to making me the most hated, horrible person in the world. I mean, and here's what it really comes down to, right? Like, when you get into that, like, when you get into the game at that level, it's just like playing professional basketball, right? Like, LeBron's got the people that love him, and LeBron's got the most staunch hatred fan base, right? That all
Shout
they
out
do,
Skip Bayless.
Yeah, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but like, there's a few things you got to realize, right? When you're at that level. Number one is opinions are like noses. Everybody has one, and it smells to the next person. Number two, and quite honestly,
I've heard that one before.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Hey, they actually say it's like booty holes, but like
I was gonna say, I think there's a different variation.
Yeah, but it's like noses, right? And the number two, though, right, is really you got to poke your chest out, right, a little bit, because if they're talking about you, then that means your name is out there.
Exactly.
You get what I'm saying? Like, and it's crazy. It's such a crazy phenomenon to understand. But like, if they're talking about you, that means that you either a threat, they care about you, they're worried about you. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they wouldn't have run that much money against me if they thought that I was just going to lose. They wouldn't have tried to paint me out to be this horrible person if they thought that I was just going to lose, right? They knew that they were in trouble, and they had to do everything humanly possible. So for me, right, I think of it like this, man. I got to put the community on my back, right? Like, I got to put the community on my back, and it's time for us to do this together. And anybody who's ever gone through it, right? You talk to the governor, you talk to, various mayors, you talk to members of Congress. They understand that, like, it's not easy, and it's so hard, and it's so lonely. But somebody has to do it. And if it's not us, then who? And if it's not now, then win. Yeah.
Go back to you talking to people from both parties. Like you have friends on both sides, right?
Absolutely.
How important is that to have those open dialogues, those open conversations? Because it seems like in the past, I don't even know, 8 years or so, it's been crazy. If you vote for this person, I cannot be friends with you. Yeah. If you believe this thing politically, we're not cool. Yep. I think that's crazy, and I think it's just not how we should interact as humans.
It's horrible, right?
Talk to me about that, because I feel like you're someone that is against that as well.
So I have such a hard time dealing with that phenomenon, right? Like, I may not agree with it, but you're not a bad person for what you agree with. You get what I'm saying? Like, 100%. You're not a bad person, right? And there's two ways to look at this phenomenon. Way number one is on the individual standpoint, right? Like, all you're doing is basically choosing from what you have options of, right?
And also, I feel like it's also what you grew up.
That's exactly right. So
like your environment, I think, plays a role in what your parents taught you.
That's exactly right. So, like, if you've learned something from just how mom or grandma did it, and then this is all you have to choose from, like, you're a human. You're going to move with the selections that you have, right? And it's very difficult to break away. It is, like, psychologically very difficult to break away from what your tribe believes, especially if you don't necessarily understand why your tribe may be wrong or believe that your tribe may be wrong, right? It's just difficult, right? And so I don't hold that against somebody. What I try to do on an individual level is I try to figure out, right, where we have commonality and use that commonality, right, to identify other entry points. Like, you care about kittens? I actually care about kittens too. Like, let's actually talk about animal welfare, and let's talk about what that means for everybody's life. Oh man, you care about grandma getting affordable diabetes medicine? I care about grandma getting affordable diabetes medicine. Let's talk about how the insurance companies are dragging up these prices, and like, let me tell you about how I believe about this and what my solutions are. Like, man, like, you care about, you know what I mean? Like, you care about the environment, right? Like, I care about the environment, right? Like, like, you may have different reasons as to why you care about it, but like, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, and we do a damn good job of listening with our mouth. Everybody, not just politicians, we do such a good job of listening with our mouth when we have 2 ears for that reason. And I bet you if you sat down and actually listened to people, you'll realize that their opinions are not that far apart. The other way, and this is what I believe is the most important part, the reason why we are so divided is because the leaders are forcing that division. Like, let that one sink in. Let that one cook for a second, right? Like, folks are not entertained. It's not cool. Back in the day, right, when Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, you know, was in the House and the presidency, respectively, they would argue till they're blue in the face, go smoke a cigar and eat a steak together. Newt Gingrich, Republican leader of the House of Representatives, Bill Clinton, they would hang out and kick it, right, like, openly. Have a cigar, have a scotch. You won't catch a big-time Republican leader and a big-time Democratic leader. I invite my Republican friends out to dinner all the time. And I'm like, give me the center table in the middle of everything, because I want everybody to see. I want everybody to see that we can have a civil dinner even though we disagree. I want people to see right in the middle of Steak 44. I want people to see that we can do stuff, and, you know, I want the gas, because we need to show folks that it's possible. But the other side of this is, we as individuals have to participate in our democracy, right? Like, democracy is not a spectator sport. It's a contact sport. And you got to get involved. You got to get engaged. You got to vote. You got to talk about the issues. You got to do the research. Like, you got to do the hard work. Like, especially if you want to complain about something. If you have an opinion you want to post on Facebook, you better be well informed, and you better be registered to vote. And you better have participated in that last election, right? Or else don't display it, because you lost your ability to do so because you're not participating in the system, right? And like, the last piece of this is, if we want to change the laws, if we want to change the behaviors, if we want to change like how things are operated at the national level, right? We got to change the lawmakers. You want to change the laws, you got to change the lawmakers. So we have to be willing to take that step into the arena to at least try. And that's a big piece for me, right? Like, inspiring folks that they can run for office and be involved. And you may not want to run for office, but maybe you want to work on a campaign, or maybe you care about this initiative, and let's figure out a board or a commission that we can help you apply for. Like, being involved civically is so important, because it's not their government. It's our government.
Right.
And the only way it's our government is that we have to participate in our government, you know?
You think we as, like, the general people have not like taken ownership of that? Do you think we've kind of just seen it on CNN, all these networks, and be like, all right, that's for someone else? I know I've felt like that in the past where I'm like, what difference am I going to make? So talk to someone like me who's looking at all this going on, looking at the division and saying, what's my vote count? I got one vote. I'm seeing all this going on. I don't know if I can really make that difference. Talk to me about, talk to those people.
Look, if you rock with me,
yeah,
right, and you like me as a person, right, and you're willing to give me a shot, your vote absolutely counts. I lost my first election by 403 votes. You're going to talk to 403 people today, alone. Whether it's social media, whether it's in person, texting, you're going to talk to 403 people by yourself. Nearly 1 million people lived in that district. Over 500,000 of them voted. And I lost by 403 votes. Yeah. Your vote absolutely matters. My second election for the United States Congress, one of my votes could have been if we go to war or not.
Wow.
You get what I'm saying? To decide the national budget, right? To decide how we make these national investments was decided by less than 1%. 3,195 votes.
Stay on this topic because, I'm just speaking from my own experience, my own knowledge. I'm seeing these ballots in the mail. I'm seeing the president. Well, definitely I got to vote for that one because that's a big deal. But explain how big of a deal it is to vote locally.
Oh, man. So what I always tell people when they ask me, like, oh, how do I start my ballot or what should I do my research on? I say flip your ballot over, start from the bottom. Start the exact opposite from the highest point. So if it's governor, president, senator, whatever that highest point is on your ballot, go to the exact opposite spot on the ballot and start there and work your way backwards. Because those offices, your school boards, your city councils, they are the ones that are impacting your lives every day. Because I bet you like when you turn on your faucet, you like when water comes out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's your city council member. You like when you flip your lights on and your lights turn on, right? That's your city council member. You like your garbage getting picked up. You don't like your rims getting dented when you driving home, right? Like, that's your city council member at the bottom of the ballot, right? Like, I don't have kids, and I know you don't have kids, but one day we will, right? Hopefully, I hope one day. The governing board members of the school districts are the ones that dictate the strategy for the schools. It's so important that we have people that are going to teach factually based evidence, right? Like, I'm not even talking about political opinions on this. Like, I just don't want my kids learning opinions. I want my kids learning facts. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And, like, the governing board members are the ones who get to dictate what books are. My mom is a governing board member for the high school district. And her 8 years of being on the governing board said that one of her single most important actions that she has made on the governing board has been to decide what books the school district buys for the next 10 years.
I think that's a very, hot topic right now when there's some books being forced into schools. You want to complain about it? But did you vote?
There you go. I
think that's honestly like a very, real thing that's happening right now.
Absolutely.
So even down to the curriculum that's in schools, the books that kids are forced to read within the school, that's very interesting. I actually did not know that.
Yeah, well, there you go.
I'm getting put on game right now.
hey, this is education right now.
Absolutely.
We going to school.
So Growth House, our motto is you become who you surround yourself with. With that being said, what influence do the people that you have in your inner circle have on you? Ooh. And would you agree with that quote?
Man, that absolutely. You are the greater sum of the 10 folks that you surround yourself around. And I try my hardest. I mentor a lot of folks, and I try to do my best to pour myself into it. My goal is to be the man I never had in my life, right? Like, I'm son of a single mom. I want to be that son, that father, that mentor, that brother, that friend, right? That's just there, right? Like, present, involved, right? That's leading, and so I try to strive to do that. But, like, when I look at my circle, man, one, my circle is a period, right? Like, my circle is this big. And two, the folks that I have around me that I go to for advice, that I seek guidance from, in my opinion, they're all light years ahead of me. Not age, right? Not all of them are, older, or I got somebody younger than me, but they're light years ahead of me. My goal is to be the least talented person of the folks that I surround myself around. And when I think about building teams, right, I built my campaign team, which was a startup, basically. We raised $5 million, started from scratch, right? I had a several-person team. Every person on my team, in my opinion, was smarter than me at what they did. My finance guy, way better than me at that. And I know how to do this stuff. My campaign manager, I've run campaigns 1,000 times better than me at this. My senior advisor knows this stuff, right? So on and so forth. And so that's kind of how I value relationships and how I think about things in my life, right? Like, I'm a hoarder of people. I believe that people come into your life, and they may come into your life. You may not know that this is not the season for them to be in your life, and then they come back around, right? Like, I believe that, we're supposed to make the relationships that we make. But my inner circle, man, is I try to be the least talented person. I want to learn something every opportunity I get.
I love that. What does success look like for you? When you hear success, I feel like everyone has a different definition of it. What is success for Jevin? And you can even talk about the goals that you have in the next 3-5 years.
Man, that's a tough one, because I kind of, that's how I lay it out, right? Like, I lay it out in buckets. I think the ultimate definition of success is to be happy and surrounded by people I love, right? Like, I don't want to be in an environment where I'm not happy, and I don't want to be in an environment where I'm not with the people. I'm a big family guy, right? Like, either my chosen family or my blood family. I'm a big, big, big family guy. You know this, big family guy. So surrounded by those people, right? And then happy, right? Like, we spend so much time not being happy. So, like, I would say, like, that's the big, big, big goal. I would say over the next, 1 to 3 years is setting myself up financially, so that I can be, and I'm trying to say this, in the best way possible, but, be that breadwinner, right? I don't want my family or the people around me to ever have to worry about nothing. Right. And so my job right now is I'm setting that up so that if we want to go out and start a business together, we got some stored away in the investment account for us to go. Let's just go figure it out. Right. Absolutely. Mom don't ever have to worry about bills. Grandma don't ever have to worry about bills. Right. Like, they work, they make their money, but they never have to worry. Like, you want to, I think a measurement for me for that financial happiness is if we want to go somewhere, let's plan out the trip and let's book it.
Love it.
You get what I'm saying?
100%.
Right. Like, things that I wasn't able to do as a kid. And so right now I'm starting businesses. I'm a part of operations. I'm doing various different things to set myself up for that. I would say civically and politically. Politically is just staying involved, staying engaged, right? Like, I've taken 2 very humbling experiences back to back. And so I need time to heal. But I also understand that there are people out there suffering, and my voice matters, and I need to get back out there. And so staying involved and staying engaged, and civically is the same thing, right? Like, how can we maximize our impact and impact lives, and be in a position where we're doing everything that we humanly possibly can. And you've seen my property at Booker T, man. We could build up. We could do some housing. We could do some healthcare stuff there. Like, we could do a number of different things. And so it's really, how do we, 1 to 3 is positioning and preparing. 3 to 5 is executing and delivering. And then 5 to 10 is basically fine tuning, right? It's like, how do we fine tune what we've been doing, and then rinse, wash, and repeat, right? So that we can build the plan, execute the plan, and then fine tune it. And same on, that's how I plan to live my life over the next, however long I'm alive. Hopefully it's a long time, Absolutely. Right? But over the next 50 years, that's what I plan to do, right? It's like, let's make a plan. Let's build on that plan. Let's execute. Let's make a plan. Let's build on that plan. Let's execute. And, when you surround yourself around people that you love, people that's going to pour into you, people that, I always say this to my best friend, iron sharpens iron, right? Like, so iron sharpens iron. And so, we're going to keep pushing ourselves to the limits. And I said this every speech when I was on the campaign trail. And it's actually a quote from my second favorite president, President Bartlett from West Wing.
Okay.
All right. So I would always say, it was one of his episodes where he was having a super presidential day. And he said in a speech that every time that we think that we've measured our capacity to meet a challenge, we will look up and we will be reminded that the capacity may well be limitless. And when you think about that, that's so true.
You got to say that again.
Every time that we think that we have measured our capacity to meet a challenge, we will look up and we will be reminded that our capacity may well be limitless.
I love that.
So I push myself to reach for the stars. I push everybody else around me to reach for the stars. I push my community to reach for the stars, because that capacity may well be limitless.
Might have to drop the mic on that one, man. So this is what I want to do. How do people find you? We're going to talk about that, because I want people to connect with you. But then we're going to have kind of a part 2 segment. If you don't want to dive into more, I'm going to ask some political questions. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I felt like we kind of shared your story, the ups and downs, how you deal with failure. but I want to ask some more political questions.
Absolutely.
So we're going to do a part 2. So stay tuned if you want that. But for right now, I just want to say I appreciate you, bro, as a friend, as a brother, someone that I met you day one. And then I also heard, he's also in the politic world. I don't know too many people in the politic world. We all have these, like, I would say misconceptions or determined ideas. And I was like, all right, let's see if he's the same person the day I met him after the 10th, 20th time that we've hung out. And you are, bro. Like, you're someone that's just always authentic. You're someone that's always giving out positive vibes, good energy, and someone, especially after you said you're younger than me, I was like, dog, you inspire me for real.
Thank you, man.
Like, what you've been doing the last couple of years and your goals and dreams and the ability and genuine heart to help people, it's a blessing to call you a brother and appreciate knowing you.
Hey, man, love you, man. Right back at you. And I'm so grateful for our friendship, our brotherhood, our business partnerships.
Yep.
Like, iron sharpens iron, man. And I learn so much from you every single day. And so I look forward to this next conversation. If you want to follow me on all channels, it's Jevin Hodge, JevinHodge. Hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook page, whatever it may be. Slide in my DMs if you have any questions. I generally always respond. And so I look forward to communicating and connecting with you.
Jesse Ray with the Growth House Podcast. Stay tuned for part 2. My man, Jevin Hodge. Jesse Ray with the Growth House Podcast. We are back, part 2. The sunglasses are off. We're going to get a little more serious. We might talk a little political.
Let's get it.
So we were talking on the first part that it's good to have open dialogue, open conversations, even if it's with people that maybe you don't agree on or you're from 2 different, political parties. And so what I want to do is just ask you some questions. Honestly, some of these are just personally I'm curious on.
Let's do it.
And some of these I think will just be good for the audience because I know not everyone is, following every, person that's in politics or even politics in general. But I think it's very interesting and the impact it can have, like we just talked about,
Absolutely.
not even on a national or just here in your own city. So one of the questions I have is just being politically correct. And this is something that, everyone has to now watch what they say or post online. I think there's a good thing about that, but I also think that could be dangerous potentially. Do you feel like you have to be politically correct, and what does that mean for you? And are you scared of ever getting canceled? I probably asked 3 questions right there. Let's see how Jevin handles that one.
Man. Bro, okay, all right, so.
Run with that how you want.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for starting with the easy questions. Here's really what it comes down to, right? Like, this cancel culture, in my opinion, is just not healthy. It's not, right? Because are we educating folks, right? Are we providing those opportunities for them to learn and for them to grow? And so the way that I think about political correctness and I think about how we should approach this, not saying that we always do, but how we should approach this is part 1 would be terms, society, all these different things evolves over time. And as we go through this evolution, there will be growing points, right? Like there will be growing pains. And what we have to understand is that not everyone is going to get everything all the time. And so can we take a step back and say, is that person just not as aware? Or is that person truly trying to be disrespectful, hurtful, and harmful? Those are 2 very different things, right? And so if they fall into the latter bucket, they are purposely trying to be disrespectful, hurtful, and harmful, then yes, absolutely, I guess cancel them, right? Like they know what they're doing it willingly. But if somebody is doing something or saying something and they don't necessarily have the education around how this can be harmful, how it can be impactful, how, what it means, right? Then we owe it to society and we owe it to the individual to provide that educational opportunity, and not just immediately throw somebody away because they said something wrong.
So you think intent has a big factor?
Absolutely. Intent is, in my opinion, like the sole indicator, right? And it's like if you're purposely calling me the N-word with a hard ER, yes, your intent is to be harmful, hurtful, and impactful, right? And if you say something and you might not necessarily understand the impact, right, of what you're saying, right? Referring to an individual who may be indigenous as in any other term, right? Like you may not understand because of the way you were taught, all right, or the terms that were previously used over the last 30, 40, 50 years, right? But like we owe it to society and that individual to educate them, right? Now, after they've been provided with the resources and they're still purposely doing it, then that's different.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Like, that's different. But we're not taking enough time to step back and really assess the situation, right? And then making a determination. We're just so quick. And don't even get me started on social media and everything else, right? Like, our brains are now hardwired to be fight or flight, right? Our attention span is 6 seconds. That 1 second less of a goldfish, right? Like, our communication style has changed. So we're not critically thinking. We're not processing. We're not using logic. We're just immediately acting instead of, like, you know, remember back in football, they'll tell you, break it down, right? And then make a, you know, if you run in head first, you go break your neck. You better break it down first and get your form right. And, like, we're not doing that. The last thing I'll say on this is, this is something I've been struggling with for a while, of like understanding, and I think I've summed it up to one question. Can the woke make room for the awakening?
Break that down.
So if you're somebody who's woke and you know every term and you get everything right, you're politically correct 100% of the time, you consume a lot of space. You do. And there are a lot of people who are on their journey of figuring this stuff out that are just trying. They may not always get it right. My grandma is one of those folks, right? My grandma is the sweetest, kindest, most loving person in the world, right? She don't always say everything right, but you better not cancel my grandma because she just may not understand the term or say the term right. You get what I'm saying? But she's going to try. She tries all the time. So can the woke, and my grandmother is technically a public figure. She's my grandmama's mom, right? Like, my grandma's out in the community shaking hands, doing all the things, right? But, like, can the woke, right, folks that understand this, right, that get this stuff, can they make room for folks that are on their journey trying to figure it out, right? That's not for me to decide, right? But, like, that's what I believe is the pathway moving forward as we try to figure this stuff out and we learn and we grow together.
Would you agree that both parties, or any parties politically, have agendas that they push and champion?
Absolutely.
So with that being said, do you feel obligated to always, anything your party says, you got to be 100% behind and agree with?
Absolutely not, right? I mean, that's the sole reason why I've been as successful as I have been in my various political ventures, right?
Do you have an example of something that was recently or when you campaigned?
Man, I got lots of examples.
Yeah.
I got you know, and let me give you a real life, I guess, PC
There you go.
example, right? Just now, and I'm just playing. I'm probably gonna get canceled for saying that.
You heard it here first.
So when I was running for Congress, my district was Scottsdale, Paradise Valley, Fountain Hills, Carefree, Cave Creek, some of the most wealthiest zip codes in the country, not just in the state, but in the country. And I'm a firm believer that we need to do everything that we can to protect our environment, to do everything that we can to give our world, our earth, to the next generation, right? And, like, we have to take these measures now. We can't wait for tomorrow to take those measures. And so a big issue, especially here in Arizona, is solar panels, right? And so there's a credit right now at the federal government where if you put a solar panel on your house, I don't remember the exact terms, and for those who are much smarter than me, you probably can correct us in the comments. It's something along the lines of like 7 years, right? And like 7 years, you buy the solar panel, you put it on your house, and in 7 years you'll get a credit back, and you basically it pays for it. I personally believe that we should lessen that to 2 years, 3 years. Basically saying, you bought a solar panel, let's figure out a way to get that money back in your pocket because you're doing the right thing. And you should be able to take your family on a vacation, and especially in a home like this, it's gonna be $50,000 to $100,000 worth of panels you put on your pocket, right?
Yeah.
You put on your house. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
My party wouldn't agree with me on that. Right? Like, no, they're not gonna agree with me on that. I firmly believe that if you're doing the right thing, you should be rewarded on a faster basis, right? Like, that's just one example, right? And, like, the party positions as a former party official aren't set in stone. Humans aren't set in stone. Humans' opinions evolve with time, and they ebb and flow throughout situations and experiences. And lawmakers need to understand that, like I said earlier in a previous conversation, when you get elected to office, you are not an ambassador for the 50% plus one that put you there. You are an elected representative of 100% of the population. So that means 100% of the people you have to listen to because they are who you work for. And people forget that because they align with the party agenda and they align. I mean, like, look, for me personally, there are certain things that I don't budge on. I just don't, right? But there are more than enough things that I'm willing to be flexible. I'm willing to have the conversation about. I'm willing to buck my own party on. I'm willing to go against the status quo, right? Because it's what's right for the district. It's what's right for our state. It's what's right for the people.
Absolutely. I find it interesting that, and this could probably have been happening way before the current time, but there seems to be a lot of business people have made hundreds of millions of dollars that are now getting into politics, running for office with pretty much no political background. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think it's good? Just kind of like riff on that for a bit.
Here's what I'm going to say. I have lots of thoughts about that.
Yeah.
Let me break it into a few different buckets. If somebody is a successful business person, they're not bad necessarily, right? They're bad based off of the decisions that they make as a business person. And people forget that. There are good business people out there. There are good people that lead with morals and integrity, that do the right thing, that have made an abundance of money, right? That go unnoticed and unrecognized. And so we need to eliminate the notion that business or capital growth and gains is bad, right? It's what you do with it, it's how you operate with it, it's the actions that you take that determines if you are bad or not. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So I think that that's number one for me. Number two is in America, we are the only industrialized country, modernized country, that doesn't value political service as a service. And so it is one of those things like if you're in politics, like that's a bad thing, right? Whereas it's not noble anymore, right? You go to other countries and they're like, oh my gosh, you're a city council member, bless you. Like, thank you for your service, thank you for your leadership. And
why do you think that is?
I think it comes from a number of different things, right? I think it comes from like the lack in value of people's opinions. I think it comes from lawmakers making decisions that are not always aligned with what their communities want or desire. I think it's from lack of participation in the system. We are the most advanced country in the world that has the lowest participation.
Really?
Yes. So if we have 50% of our registered voters participate in an election, that's an astronomically high, right? Like election. Wow. So, most people don't participate. And you got to remember, if you get a ballot, right, and you only vote for president, there's 35 races you didn't participate in. You get what I'm saying? Just because you voted for that one, you participated in that race, but you didn't participate in the state senator, you didn't participate in the governor, you didn't participate in city council, and so you didn't participate. You didn't show up for that election. You can't talk about that office, like based off of what I said earlier, right?
Yeah, no.
And so because of our lack of participation, it's not noble, right? Like, Democrats and Republicans don't lose elections. Apathy does. Apathy loses elections. And I can promise you that if more people got off their asses and participated, we would have a very different electoral system. And there's a reason, right? Like it's so powerful. There's a reason why over time there have been people that have prevented people from voting because they understand the power and they want to take it away from you. There's a reason why people try to take that power away from you because it's so powerful. It's a superpower, right? And so this is my all call that get off your tail, do your research, fill out your ballot. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I'm telling you to fill out your ballot and just participate because the more you participate, the better our system becomes. The last thing I want to add on to that is about America being the most advanced country that limits participation and doesn't value the service. Let's just call it service of individuals. And in any other industry, you value service, right? You go to a mechanic, you don't want a mechanic that's been working on cars for 6 months. You want a mechanic that's been working on cars for 60 years. I want them crusty knuckles. You know what I mean? I want pawpaw, right? Right? You go to a dentist, you don't want a dentist that has never pulled out a tooth before, that don't know how to administer anesthesia. What do you want? You want a dentist that's like, oh, I've done this a few hundred times. I got it. Like, you feel more comfortable, right? Right? Both dentists and mechanics use drills, right? Which one do you want drilling on your teeth? And which one do you want drilling on your car?
Great point.
So why in political service are we just out of nowhere valuing or putting such a high value on folks that have absolutely no experience? With that being said, though, I'm not saying that new people shouldn't get involved. I am the biggest proponent of being a new person and getting involved and getting engaged and learning the ropes and running for office, volunteering on campaigns, doing all that stuff. I'm the biggest proponent of that. But what we got to do is we got to change our thinking, right? We got to change our thinking to say, is this person doing the right thing or are they just doing something new? You know what I mean? And when we can have those levels of conversation, we can get into a deeper political discourse around right versus wrong, around good versus bad, around, is this the best thing for our people or is this not the best thing for our people? Because I'm a firm believer that we need folks from all industries. We need folks from all walks of life. We need folks with all experiences to be involved and engaged in politics, right? But just because you're new or just because you have a different viewpoint, right, or just because you've never done this before, does that automatically elevate you is what I'm asking you, right? Like we as the people need to be more critical and concerned about the people that are making laws on our behalf. I just threw a lot out there.
Yeah, so I want to dive in kind of the same topic.
Yeah, please.
I was watching a couple of debates recently, and I'm seeing people throw shade at someone who, and like I said, I don't know the backstory. Probably very few do. So someone gets elected. There may be a high-ranking official, serving, and they make $100,000 a year. And then someone else calls them out saying, hey, how can you be a multimillionaire? And I feel like there's this perception that if you are elected as an official, then you shouldn't have a lot of wealth. And I'm going back to part one where Jevin, you said, I want to be the breadwinner. You have a company already. You have a consulting firm that you were number 6, now it's 50 people. And I have a feeling that the higher you get, maybe someone will say that about you. Jevin, like you're making all this money, but you're elected official. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I mean, like this is where our institutions that are in place like really need to work, right? If you are a successful business leader and you've done well and you've made money in an honest and integrable way, and then you want to venture into politics, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with that. You've served your community in one way. You started a business. You solved problems. You did whatever.
I feel like that's service.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so like that's exactly what I'm saying, right? Like, you know what? I want to bring my talents to the political arena.
Yeah.
And I want to try. There's nothing wrong with that. Where I have a personal issue and where I think people convolute the issue is if you are in elected office and you are using your office for financial gain. That's illegal. That's wrong. You're using access to information that the public doesn't have ability to have, and then you're using that for your own financial benefit or your family's financial benefit where you share a banking account with them, right? Like that's wrong. Right now, if you are an honest business person and you've worked your tail off, and you know what, like I've done well, I've done well. I want to do good now, right? Like that's fine, do it, cool. Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, Green Party, whatever, do it, try it out, But if you are someone who has access to what markets you're going to invest in, you have access to what industries you're going to build up, who's going to get bailed out, and then you make a financial benefit off of that, that's wrong. That's the lowest of scum, right? Like that's the lowest of the lowest. And so what we do is, because folks aren't educated on the issues and because folks aren't paying attention to it, they hear the snippets of, oh, you made money while this, and they don't necessarily know how to do the research or have done the research to be able to figure out if that was factual or not. And we got a lot of fake news running around out there, right? And so that's literally how this stuff starts. Literally, like what you just talked about is literally how this stuff starts.
So how do we mitigate that? How do we make that so, and also how do people research and actually find the truth when, like you said, these news channels, these networks, they definitely have a political party that they, lean towards. Man. Yeah, how do you find the truth?
That's the tough one, right? Like that right there is probably one of the biggest things that I struggle with every day because we don't have a truly independent news source. We don't, and it's so difficult when our news that we're supposed to be receiving that's supposed to be unbiased, right, is paid reality TV almost sometimes.
That's what it seems like sometimes.
And that's just not fair on either side, MSNBC or Fox, right? Like it's just not fair to the people. There are some independent outlets that you can go to, especially around election news, right? Ballotpedia is always a really good one if you want to learn about just the facts and the stances of an individual, right? Because the way that they don't make money, right, and they have every elected office, I would say like was probably one of the best, right? Ballotpedia. I would look into other like BBC, right, to get like written news about a certain topic if you can find it on like BBC, because BBC is a really good one. But it's just really hard. You know, let's work on that. Let's work to find some folks and resources that we can provide the right links for you to do research. I mean, the one thing that I would say is don't be afraid to question. If something doesn't sound right or something feels off, right? Like your gut is an instinct that like we can't explain. So just dig deeper, right? Keep digging, dig deeper. Don't just satisfy with surface level information. And like, you know, use a metric that you talked about, right? Like when you said, you know, you talked about me and you were talking about me being authentic. Like you met me the first time, you did some research, met me the 10th time, you did some research, met me the 20th time. Apply that to political research as well, right? Like research this one topic on this website, research it on this website, research it on this website, and see like what you're seeing as consistent and what their juxtaposition is against one another, right? And you'll start to see the stark differences of the opinions, and it comes right out at you on the screen.
Do you aspire to be a president of the United States?
You know, man, I'll do whatever. The way that I see this is wherever the community guides me. You know, that's a dream. That's a childhood dream. I mean, more so than being president, like a dream would be to be the governor of Arizona, to be able to lead the state that I love so much, and be able to support the people that I care about so much. I love Arizona so much. I love everything about Arizona. I live, breathe, think, eat, sleep Arizona. You know, it's an oasis of opportunity, right?
It really is.
And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to get to work, and when the opportunity presents itself, and if it's what my community wants me to do, then I'm going to do it, right? But in the meantime, I'm just rolling up my sleeves, man, getting my hands dirty.
I love it. Speaking of president, you have a relationship, or I know you've met the former president, Barack Obama. Do we got any Barack Obama stories, man?
Oh, man. I admire and love President Obama with a fire and a passion that I can't explain, because he's one of those people that is just genuine and just incredible, and it's just real, like just so real. And like, you may not agree with him on everything that he does, and you may not like him for everything that he does, but he's very convicted, very educated and researched, and he takes this stuff personally. I'll tell you. I met President Obama the first time, I want to say like 2013, 2014, and I get the opportunity to shake his hand, and, you know, I'm standing waiting for him to come, and one of his staffers whispers to him, he goes, "Mr. President, this young kid kind of looks like you." And Mr. President walks in, and he goes, "You know, you actually do kind of look like me," you know. And he hugs me, and he daps me up, and I'm looking him in the eye. And I had to check my pants afterwards. Like, it was just like one of those moments, man. I'm like 18, 19 years old. I had the opportunity to connect with the president. I've had the opportunity to meet and connect with the president several times over the last decade, right? But I would say the one that is most meaningful, it's a few weeks out from the election, just last year. A few weeks out from the election, President Obama's in Arizona, and he's campaigning for myself and some other folks, and, you know, he's out there trying to lift the floor. And I'm backstage, and, you know, when you do these big events, it's just like a concert, right? Like, people, you know, they go in, they go out, they go in and go out. But I get some time with them, and, you know, all the people that staffing him, they're my homies from, like, back in the day, and so we're all laughing, joking. And he goes, you know, "Jevin," right? I'm like, "Mr. President, just thank you for everything. Like, you know, I love you to pieces." And he looks at me and he says, "You go bring this one home?" He's like, "I've been following this race closely, and I need you to bring this one home. We need you in elected office." And I looked at him, and like tears started to fall, right? Because it was like one of those moments, like the person that I look up to the most politically, next to my mom, is like telling me, you know, he told me he was proud of me. Like, "I'm proud of what you've done," right? Like, "I need you to bring this one home. Like, the country's dependent on you. We're dependent on you." And I just look at him, and like a frog in my throat, and I'm like, "Yes, sir, I'm going to do everything that I can." And it was like, I don't seek validation. I don't do things for validation. But it was like, at that moment, that was one of those validating moments that was just like unlike anything I've ever experienced, right? President Barack Obama looking me in the eye, telling me that he's been following the race, telling me that he's excited, telling me that the country is counting on me, my district. Like I said, it was the 6th closest seat in the country. My seat would have been one of the seats that decides which party is in leadership in the House of Representatives. And then he closes out by saying that he was proud of me. And like in those moments, the official thing to do, shake your hand, take a picture, smile, right? But I grab him and I hug him, and he hugs me back, and like he embraces me. And then we take the picture and everything else. And if you look at the picture, you almost can see the tears in my eyes. And like I'm like smiling, trying to smile, and the joke has been like, it looks like President Obama's more excited to see you than you excited to see him. And I'm just like, I've been trying to tell people the story, and I'm like, yo, I was about to cry. Like, I'm trying to hold back my tears because it was just like one of those moments, right? Oh, man.
That's special.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Wow. How does that feel now? Like, actually, the first time you knew that Mr. Obama co-signed you, how'd that make you feel? 'Cause that's got to be crazy.
I'm going to tell a different story, if that's okay with you.
Please.
Yeah, so I'm running for county office, and there's a little-known transportation secretary now, Pete Buttigieg, who was the mayor of South Bend. He ran for president, too, and folks love Mayor Pete at the time, and now Secretary Pete. And Secretary Pete dropped out of the race, and he decided to do everything that he could to support our current president, President Biden. And what he did is he said, I'm going to get involved, and I'm going to get engaged, and I'm going to pick 20 people around the country that I'm going to get behind and support. And I was one of those 20 people in his first endorsement class. Wow. And I remember getting a phone call from Secretary Pete, at the time Mayor Pete. And he just, pretty similar story, but it was before I ran for all the other stuff, right? And he was just like, I've been following this race. Somebody put this race on my radar, and you are doing a kick-ass job. And I'm just so proud of you, and I want you to do everything that you can to win, and I'm going to put my resources and my support behind you, and we're going to get it done. We're going to get it done. I'm like, this is a former presidential candidate, now Secretary of Transportation, who's one of my really good friends. We text all the time. I talk to him all the time. One of my really good friends. And it was just like one of those moments, right, where it's like, this is real. Like, this guy literally just got off of Fox News or whatever, and like I'm on the phone with him an hour later, and like he did events for me that like Zoom events, right? Like made phone calls, did all the stuff that he possibly could to be helpful, and it was like one of those moments where it's like, this is real. And now what's crazy is there are folks running for Congress, running for city council that come to me, running for a school board that come to me and they're like, your endorsement is so important, and I'm like, mine? Why? And I often have to sit back and reflect on the impact, right? Like the impact that we have made. It's never me. I never say me, even if I'm grammatically incorrect, right? PC. Grammatically incorrect. It's always we, because I can never do anything by myself. It's my team, it's my collective, it's the folks that are with us, it's us, right? And so we've made such an impact that folks value what I have to say. And so I'm very strategic about that, right? I'm very guided about that. I don't make decisions like that because if I get involved with somebody, I want to get involved with them to the fullest. I want to help them raise money. I want to help them, I want to help them build their brand. I want to connect them to the people I'm connected to. And the fact that other people who have that same philosophy, like Pete, like President Obama, whatever it may be, have done that for me, man, like I just can't, I can't put words to it. It's so hard to even put words to it.
I want to ask you one more serious question before we do like a couple little fun games. There's someone out here watching, and I probably should have put this in part one, but there's someone watching right now who has a dream. They got that fire inside of them. And then as they grow older, they have to think of what's realistic. And people are getting this put in their head, be realistic. And they know that they still got that dream. And I know you have a dream, and you're still chasing that dream. What do you say to that person who's about to give up on that dream?
Man. Well, I think I have two quotes from two people that I like to either read quotes from or listen to them talk. One of which is a video that I saw a while ago. It might have been TikTok, might have been Instagram. And it's The Rock, right? And I don't know if this is his quote, but it was definitely his voice. And it just was powerful to me. He said, one day or day one. One day or day one. One day we can do this. One day I'm going to get out there and do this. One day I'm going to live this dream. Or today is day one and we're going to bring that dream to life.
I love that.
You know what I mean? And so like that sticks to me. I think about that often. There's another quote that I just love. Like, man, I don't have any tattoos, but if I would get a tattoo, this would probably be one of them. It's actually a quote from Harriet Tubman. And this is a mic drop quote. So you ready for this?
Let's hear it.
Keep going. Keep going. Like, think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's going to be hard. Yeah, you're going to have bumps in the road. Yeah, there's going to be people trying to tear you down. But there's going to be equally as amount of people that are going to lift you up, that are going to support your vision, that believe in what you're doing, that are right behind you, that's going to ride with you, that's going to grind with you, that's going to be there with you. Like, you know this, right? When you start a growth house, like if you didn't have that in the back of your mind to keep going, you would not be where you're at right now.
It's true.
If you didn't believe that one day could become day one, you would not be where you're at right now. So to everybody out there that's got a dream, that's got a vision, that's got a mission, that believes in something greater than themselves, today is day one, and I ask for you to keep going.
Love that. We're going to have some fun real quick.
Let's do it.
Top 3. We're not going to talk about it much. Just literally going to say top 3. Top 3 musicians.
Oh, dang. Really?
Yep.
Artists, genre?
Like this, maybe your favorite? Man. Yeah, I would say your favorite because I know, we're supposed to say some artists because they're the biggest.
Yeah.
But your top 3 musicians.
Man, my top 3, like, okay, actually, here's how I'm going to look at this.
Okay.
If I only could listen to 3 people's music for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Okay.
Drake. Drake is, man, that's my guy. I love Drake. Robin Thicke. And we got the Robin Thicke stories. So,
really do.
we got the Robin Thicke stories. And
shout out Robin
crazy.
Thicke.
Yeah, shout out to Robin. And it's funny because I told Robin this, and I'm like, dude, you're one of my idols. Like, I love you, man. Like, I know you know what I mean? Like, remember that night, man. So, Drake, Robin Thicke, and I'm probably going to have to go with, this is a tough one. For that third one, Mariah Carey. Man, I love me some Mariah. Man, my dog is named Mariah, man. She's got Mariah's personality.
There you
go.
I
just love Mariah, man. That heartbreak, you got the best of, man. I'm telling you, I'm a big softy sometimes.
I feel you. I named my car Aaliyah, so I get you.
Yeah, man, Aaliyah was my first dog. That's my boo.
There we go.
Yeah.
Top 3 NBA players in order.
In order, Shaq is the single greatest player to ever grace a court. Period.
Keep going.
Not a debate. You can't debate it. So Shaq's the greatest player ever. I've told Shaq this to his face. I love Shaq to pieces, and you can't debate it. I can give you every argument, man. If this man just made a third more free throws, he'd be the top scorer of all time. There's nobody that's ever dominated the game like how he has.
I told him just top 3, and he goes and tries to defend his position.
That's it.
That means it's a little sketch.
Shaq, and Shaq. There you go. All right. Shaq, Michael Jordan for sure, and Kobe.
I love it. All right, 2-minute drill. Just one sentence or even just maybe a couple words. Kind of random. Some political, some just random stuff. So you ready? Bitcoin.
We need to explore more and figure out how do we lean into its unique abilities.
President Joe Biden.
Has had a legacy of service and leadership and has led at a time when we need that grounding. And it's time now for us to continue to charge forward as a country.
Former President Donald Trump.
Someone who has single-handedly changed the path of history, in my opinion, not for good. And we have to repair our democracy moving forward.
Capitalism.
Something that can be a very powerful tool when used correctly, or a very destructive tool when used incorrectly.
Katie Hobbs.
The governor is my friend. I've known the governor for forever. She's a homie, and I'm really proud of her leadership and leading in uncertain times.
Carrie Lake.
Someone who has used their unique abilities not for the best. She's a mobilizer, an engager, an incredible public speaker, but someone who could have been just so much more in a time when we needed more.
RFK Jr.
Interesting.
Do you have a prediction for the next president of the United States?
If I told you I had a prediction, like, I'll tell you this. Get involved. Get engaged.
He goes PC on us.
Yeah, like, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, there's just so much uncertainty out there, right? Because, I mean, if Donald Trump goes to jail for legitimately breaking the law, like, I'm all against the slander and destroying someone's name. But like legitimately influencing an election is an insurrection, right? Like and inciting an insurrection, right? Like so. Like, if he goes to jail, that changes the entire playbook. I think Nikki Haley is getting a lot of steam, and I think she's going to be someone that's going to be on the Republican side. I have no clue what's going to happen on the Democratic side. There's a lot of whispers about what's happening. President Biden, I mean, say what you want to say about his age and say what you want to say about everything else, has proven to be an incredible president to lead in very difficult times, right? Like, take your bias out of it and look at the facts. Like, look at the jobs created by the CHIPS Act. Look at the jobs created by the Infrastructure Act. Look at the greatest investment in science and technology, right? I mean, like, there's been things that have happened that have been substantive. So I don't know, man. This election is going to be, like, here's what I will say. This election will dictate what the next 20 years in America looks like. And when I say that, I'll say this. It will dictate what the next 20 years of America looks like, because are we going to have a functional and structural democracy that we can lean into, or is our democracy going to crumble beneath us? That's where I think we're at.
Jesse Ray with the Growth House Podcast. I'm here with my man, Jevin Hodge. I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thanks to all the viewers that have tuned in today. Follow me across all channels at Jevin Hodge. Hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. Get your 5% in. That's your 1 hour every day for you. Get that time in to make sure you rest, relax, rehydrate, rejuvenate, refresh your mind, your body, your spirit, and your soul. Have a great one, y'all.